The Religious Society of Friends, better known as the Quaker movement, was founded in the mid-1600s by George Fox, who went all around England on a spiritual quest, after which he concluded that the presence of God was found within individual people rather than with churches. His Quaker movement also was pacifistic, had no clergy, rejected elaborate religious ceremonies, and believed that all people, men and women, were spiritually equal. Due to these beliefs, which went against what was conventional at the time, the Quakers were heavily persecuted. As noted in the previous lesson, William Penn was a Quaker himself. He had converted in the 1660s after he encountered some Quaker preachers in Ireland. He was jailed on multiple occasions for blasphemy, but he was eventually released, and in 1681, King Charles granted the Pennsylvania colony to Penn to repay a debt he owed his father, Admiral Sir William Penn. Penn's goal for the colony was for it to be a haven where his fellow Quakers and other religious groups could escape persecution and practice their faith freely. Quakers were treated poorly when Pennsylvania first got independence during the Revolutionary War. Due to their belief in pacifism, they refused to take up arms against the British, even if they agreed with the American patriots ideologically. This caused them to be viewed as loyalists and therefore treated as such. However, there are also many examples of Quakers who were spies for the Americans. The British did not often suspect Quakers due to them being pacifists. Despite this adherence to pacifism, Quakers would go on to serve in some American wars such as the Civil War and the Second World War anyway. Also related to this is that to Quakers, all life is precious regardless of ideology. Many Quakers would supply both sides in many different wars with basic necessities. Some Quakers even smuggled supplies to the communist North Vietnamese during the Vietnam War. How many Quakers are there in Pennsylvania today? Although Quakers have historically made up a large chunk of Pennsylvania's population, roughly 50% of the population by 1700, their numbers have greatly declined over past centuries due to members joining other denominations or being kicked out for marrying non-Quakers. There are many various schisms among the Quakers in the 19th century as well. Today there are only around 76,000 Quakers in the United States, let alone Pennsylvania. However, that is not to say they have not had a large influence on Pennsylvania. Quakers were historically very influential. Quaker ideals were responsible for much of Pennsylvania's early policy, such as peaceful relations with the Native Americans, education for all citizens, and voting rights for nearly all men. Also, many of the first abolitionists and women's rights advocates were Quakers. In 1712, Pennsylvania banned the slave trade, and in 1780, Pennsylvania became the first state to abolish slavery altogether. This was in part due to the efforts of Quaker abolitionists. Quakers have even been influential on the country as a whole, with two presidents, Herbert Hoover and Richard Nixon, being Quakers.